for my handsome son, Deon Williams, and he's working on his first book called Ice Cold. Young author and up and coming.
What inspires him? Then do you mind taking some questions at the end?
Oh yeah, sure. The questions are actually easier to answer. So, hello, my name is Deon. I've been going to CCA for 3 years now, on and off, and it's given me a lot of time to write. So I started writing at the age of 8 as more of a hobby and stuff, because I tried drawing at first, but I can only draw about a mediocre stick figure at best. So I vented my imagination into writing. At age 13, I wrote my first draft of the Guardian series, and last year I was able to publish my first 2 books. And this book that I've published now is about a boy named Frank. And he's a fairly normal boy, and about to start his first year in 11th grade. But the only weird thing about him is his adoption. Nobody knows who his real parents are. But later on in the book, he figures out that he's not a normal person, that his mother is Medusa and his father is David the Angel. And throughout the book, he has to fight the forces of good and evil within himself and come to a realization that he either has to join forces with Medusa or fight against him, which is a lot for a 16-year-old boy. I didn't think that I would ever be writing a book before, because I just thought all my imagination would just stay inside my head and stuff like that. It was just dreams that I had as a kid, but now here I am with my first book. It's nothing that I saw myself doing in the future, but stuff like that. It's always good to surround yourself in people who believe in you, by the way. Just people who have doubts and who don't really do stuff with their life. It can really bring you down as a person. So it's really nice to surround people who have dreams like you, people who believe that they can do stuff, instead of just surrounding yourself with people who don't think they can go anywhere. And rejection is inevitable in life. Of course you're gonna get rejected from time to time, but sometimes you gotta suck it up and try again.
Do you have big movie plans for later on?
Oh
Do you
yeah,
know who's gonna play your main characters?
I
hope there's a part for me.
Yeah, there's a part for everybody. The being was now walking towards me, slowly. Its form reminded me of a werewolf. From what I could make out, it had short hind legs, a large body, long arms, treacherous large and sharp hands, and a wolf's head supported by beating yellow eyes.
What were your influences for writing? How did you come up with the idea?
From a kid, I've always watched like a lot of fantasy fiction type stuff. So a lot of my inspiration comes from stuff like that, even if it's Japanese animation or American animation.
You're mixing 2 different religions, mythology and Christianity.
Oh yes, yeah.
Did you have to do research on both of those in order to be able to incorporate them into your books?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So my book is for all ages, so there's no cursing or lewdness in my book at all. So my 60-year-old grandma read it, and then my nephew also read it as well, and they both loved it.
So you're working on your 3rd book. When you're done with that, do you have any other kind of book ideas?
Oh yeah, so the thing about Guardian is 8 different characters. Franklin is only 1 out of the 8 characters.
Who are your favorite authors?
Alice Walker, actually. She wrote The Color Purple, and that's actually one of my favorite books as well. I just read that. I think that was last year. Yeah,
That's
last
not
year.
fantasy.
Yeah, a lot of people would think that my favorite book would be fantasy, but I just like it because it's more rustic in a way. It's more realistic, and pretty much uncensored as a way. So yeah, what I do is I set goals and stuff. I set like limits and restrictions and stuff. So last summer I took most of my time to write this book, and I made myself write 10 pages a day, so that by the end of that month I would have at least 300 pages. So it took me about a month and a half, and the second book that I had is 430 pages.
What's the best advice you could give students, but also teachers, encouraging the students?
Wow. Yeah. I would say that it's never too late to follow your dream. You know, I started running at the age of 13. So when I tell people that, a lot of people don't expect that stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, the only person who can hold you back is yourself, really. And it's up to you to give that commitment to yourself to follow your dreams and stuff. So, because I could have slacked off. Actually, I did slack off during my 10th grade year. I barely wrote at all. But after a while, I just got kind of down in the dumps because I wasn't writing. And my 11th grade year, I just pretty much put my all into these books and got both of them published my 11th grade year.
So it's 2 and 3?
2, and I'm working on the third one this summer.
So just out of curiosity, what are your post-high school plans then?
I'm going to Elizabethtown College. I'm going to major in electrical engineering and a minor in creative writing.
Yeah, actually, 'cause I have a younger one here. How did CCA help you?
CCA helped me by giving me flexibility, honestly. Because
Because you said 5 hours of writing 10
5 hours,
pages.
yeah.
You still got to do your schoolwork too, right?
Schoolwork.
So that's why I was curious.
I've gotten so used to CCA and stuff that usually what I do is wake up early in the morning, then go to live lessons, all that stuff, and then in between those live lessons I work on my work and stuff. So I'd say about one lesson would take me about 25, 30 minutes. And say I have about 5, 7 lessons a day, 3 hours out of my day to do work, and then 5 hours of my day to write. So that's only about 8 hours of my day. Yeah, no problem.
Yes, CCA has allowed that flexibility for him. So, you know.
Yeah, and it's also allowed me to go and look at college and stuff. Since I'm not literally in school, I can take off a day and then go visit a college and then come back and just do my work later on.
You have a long work day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
CCA has also helped him by doing this. Thank you, Tom. Giving him the exposure, you know, and the teachers have been so supportive and wonderful to him and helping him. Just the experience alone, you know, at his age, you know, and then it helps to inspire the other kids as well.
Zamir Williamston.
That's my son. I love you, boo-boo. Proud of you. That's my grandson.
Victoria Winfield.
Right.
You guys, whatever you want to do in life, you can do it. Even if you think it might be unachievable, you can still do it. Any dreams, like even if you want to be a football player, you can be that. If you want to be a basketball player, if you want to be a doctor, you can do that. And all you have to do is put in the hard work to do it. It may take 2 years or 3 years, but eventually you can do or be who you want to be.
episode 2 of Deon's Story Podcast. Today, you will get a glimpse inside Deon's latest novel, Guardian a Hero, Son of Medusa, from the book Trilogy series, Guardian Franklin's Story, available on Amazon.com. So sit back, put your earphones on, and listen to stories written, narrated, and produced by Deon Williams.
Welcome to Deon's Story Podcast. I'm your host, Deon. Today I'll be reading one of my favorite parts from my new book, Guardian, a Hero. Hope you enjoy. I couldn't feel my body at this point, just the cold and dampness of the web I was laying in. Maybe I was going to die here, or worse, end up like that guy inside the hive. Maybe this was the destiny that Attic and I talked about, or maybe I was meant to end my life in this very place. But it didn't make sense. None of this was completely my choice. I didn't want to leave my family. I didn't want to be chosen. I didn't want to die. A whole life must have never been mine to begin with. I was only living the illusion that it was. I was born to live and die without much purpose. Suddenly a sound echoed in my head as I lay motionless in the webbing. I thought it was just a ringing in my head from being thrown so furiously, but as I listened closer, it began to get clearer.
Franklin.
The being was now walking towards me, slowly. Its form reminded me of a werewolf. From what I could make out, it had short hind legs, a large body, long arms, treacherous large and sharp hands, and a wolf's head, supported by beating yellow eyes.
Franklin.
It dragged its large body towards me, with its massive hands, shaking the ground every time its palm slammed on the ground. Its legs must have been too short to support such a hefty body, but the size of its arms and hands made up for that. The idea that I was even still alive to examine this creature surprised me. If the being slapped anything else with those massive hands, they would surely die on impact. Yet I was sitting there, alive and painless, and at the same time, I could feel nothing.
Franklin.
I looked down at myself to see if I had any noticeable injuries. It turns out that 2 ribs on my right side were sticking out, but I couldn't scream or cry about it. I was still too shocked. All I could do was soak in what could very well be my last moments.
Franklin, get the hell up.
I could hear the sound now. It was Albino. He was still alive, and so was I. He hadn't given up yet. Despite the situation, he was still pushing me. Suddenly I felt it. The boost. It had been a while since I felt the sensation, but this time, it was more intense. I swiftly gained feeling in my limbs again, though my torso was still shocked from the impact. My thinking cleared up. My number one objective was to survive. I waved my right hand over my exposed ribs and quickly froze them in an ice casing to prevent bleeding. I could control Albino's abilities all of a sudden. I had little time to wonder why I could control them. The beast had noticed my movements. It quickly tried to strike me as I was lying on the ground, but just like at the river, time slowed. I was able to hop out of the way before the beast's claw crushed me. I encased my left arm in a sharp shard of ice. While the beast was distracted by my sudden disappearance from the ground, I saw my chance. With all my might, I ripped through the beast's right arm, cutting cleanly through. I quickly twisted to the left, cutting even cleaner than before. The beast threw what was left of his arms into the air and looked at them in surprise. It was so quick that the beast couldn't even feel the pain. The wounds left behind were frozen on impact. The beast charged at me in anger. I slid to the right, a moment before the beast could tackle me. Time slowed once again. I morphed my left leg into a sharp blade of ice, and at the perfect moment, swiped the blade through the beast's kneecaps. The beast hit the ground with a loud thud. It squirmed around in a desperate but futile attempt to remove itself from the ground. Its head was turned towards me, The beast furiously snapped in the air, still trying to bite, even though the fight had been long won. I turned my limbs back to normal and walked over, careful not to be bitten. The beast snapped at me. When it failed, I placed my hand upon its wolf-like snout. Ice began to encase the beast's head at a slow speed. I watched as the beast squirmed, trying its hardest to stop freezing to death. I looked at it, standing remarkably still, all the while thinking, what have I become?
Thank you for listening to Guardian a Hero, Son of Medusa book trailer. We hope you enjoyed episode 2 of Deon's Story Podcast. Don't forget to check out Deon's Trilogy series, Guardian Franklin Story and Guardian a Hero, Son of Medusa, available on Amazon.com and Kindle. Also, to keep up with Deon, visit DeonStoryPodcast.com. Captivating, adventurous, humorous, and thought-provoking. Welcome to Deon's Story Podcast. Writer and author of Guardian Franklin Stories and Guardian a Hero, Son of Medusa, from the book Trilogy series. Get ready, put your earphones on, sit back, close your eyes, and listen to stories written, produced, and narrated by Deon Williams.
Welcome to My Story Podcast. I'm your host, Deon Williams. Today's story is Echo, a story about time. I hope you enjoy. We were driving towards downtown, me, Jacob, Ellie, and Kayla. We often hung out at random restaurants, trying new food places. Downtown had an endless amount of choices. We had to cross the Evanston Bridge to make it downtown. It was a big blue Goliath of metal and wire that connected one part of the city to the next. I always hated bridges, just never had a real reason for it. Kayla was driving. We were wary about her driving because she had just gotten her license no less than 2 days ago. But she was doing pretty well having to drive with us three crazy people, singing almost every song on the radio without missing a word. We laughed and joked around, then we stopped at the Evanston Bridge toll. The bridge connected the two cities. Kayla turned down the music, and the rest of us quieted down as we approached the toll. Kayla pulled out $20 and handed it to the 40-year-old woman at the toll booth. The woman was taking exceptionally long to take a $20 bill. It wasn't like we handed her change that she had to count. A noise roared in the distance. You couldn't make it out at first, but as you listened closely, you could piece two and two together. I looked in the rearview mirror to see a car coming straight for our lane at least over 100. But before I could warn Kayla to back out of the lane, it was too late. We went flying past the toll. Kayla couldn't gain control of the wheel. In seconds we flipped. The car tossed and turned over the bridge until the point it went over the railing. All I could hear was the screaming of my friends and I falling to what could be our death. Time seemed to slow. They always say your last seconds on this world are the longest. I saw Kayla's head smashed in on the front steering wheel. Jacob knocked out by the front airbag, and Ellie's mascara dripping down from crying and screaming. I thought, maybe if we had 5 extra seconds, we could have made it out of this. We were driving towards downtown. Me, Jacob, Ellie, and Kayla. We often hung out at random restaurants trying new food places. Downtown had endless amounts of choices. Jacob lit a cigarette. Jacob smoked a lot, and his limit wasn't cigarettes, nor was any of the others in the car. Yet, Jacob smoked constantly. At least 50% of his day consisted of smoking. Whether it be nicotine, cannabis, or other alternatives I'd rather not mention. Jacob supplied pretty much all of us. His parents were filthy rich and had no problem showing it. They bought Jacob his own 4-bedroom house when he was 10. He rarely sees them. It's like they never existed in his eyes. Just a bank account he can withdraw from without having to worry about the amounts he takes. We got closer to the toll. I hadn't peed before we left, and we had already been in the car for about an hour. We weren't close to any exits on the highway. We would have to cross Evanston Bridge before we could stop at a place with a restroom. If I didn't go then and there, I felt like I was going to pee myself. I asked Kayla to pull over to the side of the road so I could let it out. I stood for what felt like hours, hearing my friends laugh at me peeing on the side of the highway. Multiple cars ran by, yet a noise roared in the distance. We couldn't make it out at first, but as you listened closely, you could piece two and two together. I looked to my right. There was a car flying down the road at least over 100. The speed of the car passing us created a strong wind that shook my clothes to the left. Not too far behind the speeding car were three equally fast police vehicles. After a few seconds, I heard a big crash further up the road. I finished up, then hopped into the car. We approached the Evanston Bridge not far ahead. The middle toll had been ran through. There was debris from the broken toll stick on the ground, and a long line of cars being held up. We got our spot in a line of what looked like 7 cars. They only let cars through every few minutes. Jacob was aggravated and had no problem showing the whole highway that he was.
Fuck you!
He grew impatient quick, yelling curses out the window and flipping people off. It was a miracle he even made it up to the toll without getting into a fight. It took us about 30 minutes to get past that toll, but after that, it was smooth sailing. Kayla turned the music back up in an attempt to lighten the mood. Nobody sung though. About a quarter way on the bridge, you could see smoke, and a strong gasoline smell filled the air. It was the car that ran the toll that crashed into the left lane railing. Smoke was flying out of it, and gas and oil leaking from below it. Jacob's first cigarette dragged out. He threw it out the window, pulled another one out, and lit his lighter. They always say that your last seconds on this world are the longest. The flame of his lighter lit, then it spread, and spread. I could have went my whole life without hearing the blood-gurgling sound of my friends being burnt alive, seeing my friend's skin blacken from the intense heat of the ignited flame. The car's fake blubber melted, and the air became unbearable to breathe. It wasn't long before the car up and exploded, sending our cremated body up into the atmosphere. We were driving towards downtown. Me, Jacob, Ellie, and Kayla. We often hung out at random restaurants, trying new food places. Downtown had endless amounts of choices. You had to cross Evanston Bridge to get downtown. Before we reached the bridge, we pulled over so I could go to the bathroom. I had been holding it in even before we left. Some maniac ran the Evanston Bridge, so that made us have to wait even longer to get downtown. Jacob was pissed about that. After a while, we passed the toll and started crossing the bridge. We were passing the car that crashed on the bridge. Jacob dragged out a cigarette and tried to light a new one. But before he could reach the lighter, I gave him a hard slap across the head. I told him it was stupid to light a fire with a gasoline scent so thick in the air. He put the lighter in his pocket and pouted like a little kid, turning his head towards the car window and not talking to anyone for a while. Further down the bridge was a weird amount of backed up traffic. You don't usually see a lot of traffic on the Evanston Bridge, but it was rush hour. Some asshole kept beeping the horn behind us. It wasn't like we had anywhere to go. There was too much traffic ahead. Unless he wanted us to ram our way through the cars in front of us, he had no other choice but to sit there and wait. The beeping continued. Jacob was still too pouty to care, but Ellie was annoyed as ever. The car started blowing the horn for longer amounts of time, just beeping the horn to no avail at this point. It looked like Ellie was about to burst a blood vessel if this guy didn't stop being an asshole. Soon Ellie had enough. She stuck her body out the window and gave the car a stern middle finger with every sense of hatred involved. Her face turned from furious satisfaction to instant regret. Turns out, the asshole that was beeping the horn was a police officer. The police vehicle's lights began to blink. The man stepped out of the car and proceeded to approach us. Ellie started panicking. She rummaged around in her pockets and pulled out a little baggie. At first I didn't know what it was, but its small size and mashed contents made me realize Ellie was carrying around drugs in her pocket this whole time. The officer was getting close to the car, if I was to take them from her, he would have saw, and I would have been the one going to jail for possession. I pushed Ellie's hand away. She gave me this fierce look of betrayal. Before Ellie could slide the drugs somewhere else, it was too late. The officer saw the little baggie sitting right there in the palm of her hand. The officer said that we were all under arrest and began calling for another police cruiser to help carry us off to jail. We were driving towards downtown. Me, Jacob, Ellie, and Kayla. We often hung out at random restaurants, trying new food places. Downtown had an endless amount of choices. You had to cross Evanston Bridge to get downtown. Some maniac ran the Evanston toll, so that delayed us a bit. The guy crashed on the bridge, taking up one of the left lanes. A potent smell of gasoline came from the crashed car. Police officers took out fire extinguishers from the trunks of their cars to keep the car from overheating. Near the middle of the bridge, traffic piled up. Some asshole started beeping the horn over and over, as if we could just fly over the line of cars in front of us. I saw Ellie stirring in the seat next to me. Ellie didn't outburst a lot, but sometimes she could be pushed to her limits. I saw her go to flip off the car behind us, but before she could get herself out of the car window, I jerked her back in. Turns out, the car behind us was one of the police vehicles from the car crash a bit back on the bridge. Ellie thanked me for pulling her back into the car. She pulled out a little baggie from her pocket and flashed it in my face. She said if we were to get caught with this, we'd probably end up behind bars. Kayla asked if it was a bump of coke. Ellie answered her question with a devious yes. All of us in the car had known Kayla's history with drugs. A year ago, she was put into a coma after injecting heroin Jacob had stashed away in his house. She was lucky to have recovered at all, let alone survived the endeavor. But ever since then, she's had an aneurysm in the inner lobe of her brain. In the beginning, she would have random violent attacks. Though after taking a number of different medication and prescribed pills, they've seemed to calm the most dire effects of the aneurysm. The fact that Ellie could be so inconsiderate bugged me, but apparently it didn't bug Jacob, Ellie, or even Kayla. They talked about how they snorted in the parking lot to have a better time on the town. They just laughed it off as if the world's rules didn't apply to them. Like they were immortal, as if they were to make any mistake, they could just reverse time and try it again. There was no sense of consequence in their mind, no sliver of regret for the choices they had made, no controversial thought as to the things that may happen. The traffic dispersed, opening space between the cars. It was cramped and secluded before, but now it was so free. It was all so clear to me now. Like the walls of my brain had been broken down, as if the light of day had shined through my eyes for the first time in a long time. I suddenly found myself wanting to leave the car. I asked Kayla to pull over to the side of the road. She questioned why, but I gave no reason. I just asked again. She pulled over, and I left the car. I began walking back the way we came. They tried to stop me, thinking that I wasn't in my right mind, but it was them who had the clouded judgment. I realized that if I ever had any chance of crossing this bridge, I would have to burn my old ones. Later on that day, I was at home, watching the news on television. They were talking about the crash on Evanston Bridge. At first I thought they were talking about that one maniac, but soon realized they were mentioning an entirely different crash. They said that a car crashed full speed into the Evanston toll, instantly killing 3 people. The news said that there were traces of cocaine in their systems. They snorted the cocaine as soon as I left. Kayla must have had one of her attacks while driving because of it, leaving Jacob and Ellie helplessly locked in the car as her soulless body pressed full force on the gas pedal. They were only 17. People waste a lot of time, then they wish for more. Want more hours in their days, more days in their years, more years in their lives. As if they had all that extra time, they could fix any mistake. But here's the thing about time. If you can't make the most out of any given moment, then you don't deserve a single extra second.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the first episode of Deon's Story Podcast. Be sure to check out Guardian Franklin's story and Guardian a Hero, Son of Medusa, from the book Trilogy series, available now on Amazon.com. And to keep up with Deon, visit DeonStoryPodcast.com.